Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be in the company of former three-weight world champion Duke McKenzie, MBE, in different settings, not over Zoom this time at the gym. We've been across the world in Dubai, now we're here in Croydon. Duke, it's great to see you. Great to also be working with you on your channel, Jukebox, the same name as the gym, as you look to give the boxing world your insights. Have you enjoyed the experience of launching your own channel and giving the insights to the people who are listening in?
Yeah, you know what? It's nice to be on the other side. It's nice to give a different opinion on boxing. Obviously, it's nice not getting hit. It's nice to be given an unobjective view on fights. I mean, by that same token, it's nice to be able to put myself in the shoes of other boxers, you know, because I've walked that line. So I know what they're feeling, how they're feeling, you know, confidence, if they're confident, if they're not confident. It's nice to be on, I just like to be on the other side of the sport.
Talking about being on the other side of the sport, let's get straight into some of the boxing conversation that's going on. I wonder how you feel about the landscape right now and its shifting sands in terms of the players that are in the game. You now have the new entrant, which is an old entrant into combat sports, one of the figureheads in combat sports in the form of Dana White, who's now starting his long-awaited Zuffa boxing venture with fighters he's picking up. I think it's Callum Walsh that starts this weekend. Rumours of Alexander Usyk signing, Andrew Ruiz signing, those two then fighting as well too. Jai Pataya has since signed. If you were a fighter now in this day and age where you could join this new venture, which is sort of a UFC model, or go with the standard tested promoters of the likes of Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, and have that sort of model that's been experienced throughout the years, where would you put your foot forward?
I would probably go with the tried and tested. You know, Hearn, Warren, you know, they're established promoters. They're established in creating and generating world champions. I don't really know enough about Dana White to, you know, comment or say, you know, this, whatever he does is going to be good for the sport. Because the more promoters that are in this sport, the more competition there is. That means the fighters are going to make more money. They're going to get more opportunities. So he'll be looking to impress because look, he's signed Jai Pataya, right? And you said Andrew Ruiz is going to be maybe potentially signing with him as well. So, you know, he's picking up fighters slowly but surely. So, and he'll make those guys really sort of more marketable because he's had years of doing it with the UFC. Is that right?
Well, let me give you a little bit of flavour. That is correct. But let's say, for example, which has been known in the UFC, is you might have guaranteed pay for a number of fights in the year. You don't get to choose those fights. You don't get to say which route you want to go. The fights that you get are the fights that you get.
Right.
But you'll get paid. You'll get paid well. You might not be able to see what the pay is overall, but you'll get paid well. You might not be at the top level, but you'll get a pay befitting of what you are worth to the company at that point in time. But the trade-off from that is, let's say if you have a sponsorship or you have sponsors that are wanting to back you, you can't bring them in. Those sponsors might go to the company as opposed to yourself. You can't put them on these shorts. You have to conform to the UFC standard in trade-off for getting a standard pay that you might not get if you were lower down the rung. Let's say your 8th fight, you might not get a certain amount of money, but you get more money in the UFC. But as you climb up the ranks, that shift in pay will change favour towards the UFC, but you might be able to negotiate that or negotiate out of that if you can.
Yeah, I don't think that sort of format would work in a boxing sense, because obviously on the way up on your ascendancy, you're not going to get as much as you would for a world championship fight. And obviously, if you become a world champion, then you're going to get all kinds of endorsements thrown at you, where you're going to make even more money. So I don't think that model works for professional boxing. I don't know, you know, because only Dana White will know that. But by that same token, I don't know if boxers will actually stand for that. You know, you might do it if you're young and you're on the way up and you're just trying to, you know, cut your teeth, if you will, into the sport and start to establish yourself. But if you're an established champion, don't know if that works. But having said that, he signed Jai Pataya, right? And if the same in principle is going to work for him, he must have, mind you, he's an established world champion, so he would have been cut a good deal. Maybe you can use him as an example.
I want to jump to some of the conversations that we'll have on Jukebox over on that channel. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It's in the description box as well as in collaboration with this video too. One of the standout videos I've seen covering boxing is a video before my time, but nonetheless one that stuck with me is a video of Mike Tyson. He was doing a tour of his house and he brought out the belts that he'd won throughout his career, and he was saying to the interviewer that the belts don't mean anything to him. They're garbage was the quote that Mike Tyson said. He felt that they were hollow and weren't worth the blood that he spilled to get them. When you sit in front of the belts that you won, do they still hold the feeling that they did when you held them aloft during your career?
Probably. Do you know what? Probably more so. I'm so proud of my boxing achievements. You know, I'm only one of 3 British boxers ever, right, to call themselves a 3-division world champion. That, to me, it means everything to me. You know, to be able to win a world championship is great. You know, and to win 2, you might say to yourself, wow, that's pretty damn decent. You know, but then you call yourself a 3-division world champion. To me, that gives me legacy. You know, I may not be a millionaire, and, you know, but when I die, I'm not going to be known for being a millionaire. I'm going to be known for being a 3-time world champion. And that means more to me than anything right now, in a boxing sense. You know, I'd rather be known for what I've actually achieved than from what I'm actually worth.
Do you have a favourite belt?
I haven't really got a favourite belt, but the way I describe all of my belts, this is my first world title belt, the IBF Flyweight Championship of the World against Rolando Belhol, 1988, 5th of October, Wembley Conference Centre. Right, this is what I call my coming of age fight, because I didn't really know just how good I was, or even if I was genuinely world class at that point. Even up until the morning of the fight, I was trying to convince myself that I could win, and it wasn't until my Dudley turned up at my doorstep, because I've been crying actually, had a bit of a meltdown. But once Dudley turned up and made me feel good about myself again, there was only ever going to be 1 million in my mind. Do you see what I mean? My brother had that much belief in me. He knew I could do it, and what I needed was his confidence, and I used to ride up his confidence. I had to ride up his confidence until mine kicked in, if you understand what I'm trying to say. It's not easy being a fighter, because, you know, you can doubt yourself at any time. But when Dudley was around, I had no reason to doubt myself. So that's my coming of age fight, when I won my flyweight world title. The bantamweight world title belt, the Gabby Canizales fight, that one over there, that's my career's best performance, because in the Canizales fight, for 13 weeks, I ate, slept, drunk, walked and talked with Gabby Canizales. I didn't go out my front door, promise you, didn't go out my front door, unless I was going to do my run in the morning, I was going to go to the gym of an afternoon. Then only two times that door was opened and closed. Now, people might think that's really, you know, quite intense, but when you're living the life of a professional anything, you have to be so dedicated. And I wasn't the person that I am today that I was then. I was quite an intense little man. And yeah, you know, I mean, it was such a beautiful fight to watch. Do you know what? I only watched it again the other day, a couple of Sundays ago, and I got goosebumps going down my neck all over again, you know, because when I look at the amount of punches that I threw in the fight and the combinations that I threw, the fitness levels that I actually achieved, I'm quite proud of myself. And then I've got the my third world title against Jesse Benavidez, which would probably be certainly one of my hardest fights, because against Benavidez, I wasn't supposed to win. I mean, all the odds were stacked against me. I think we only had one national press turn up at the fight on fight night. I think it was Neil Allen from the late Neil Allen from the Evening Standard. Neil turned up for the fight, and again, it was a fight I wasn't supposed to win. But the difference between me and Benavidez was on the night. For Benavidez, another Kronk fighter, trained and managed by the late great Manny Stewart. To him, he was coming to pick up a paycheck. I was an easy fight. To me and Dudley, that was our last fight. So I went into that ring prepared to bare my soul and leave every ounce of energy I had in that ring. And if you watch the fight, it's a very physical fight, but that's exactly what happens. I leave every ounce of energy in that ring, and they crown me as a 3-division world champion.
You know, when you're going into a fight just like that and it's all negatively weighed against you in terms of people thinking you're the one here that's going to lose, you're the one that doesn't have a hope in hell's chance of winning, you're the one who one press member turned up, which can't fill you with a lot of confidence, considering they didn't think that you were maybe worth the time to spend there, which was to their detriment. Does that ever creep into your mindset of, maybe I am the one who is going to lose here? How do you shut those thoughts away, shut people away who are saying essentially that you're there to get beat?
Well, as I said, my brother Dudley was like my psychologist. So he was my psychologist, he was my best friend, he was my brother. We were more than brothers because, like I say, if Dudley said I could win, I believed him. If he said I couldn't win, which he never did, but if he had have said that, I'd have believed him. I had that much confidence in him. So it didn't really matter what everybody else was saying, what the whispers were going around, because there were plenty of them, I promise you. But that didn't really matter because I could just almost have tunnel vision and block it out. When you've got somebody that believes in you that much, you can't let them down. This was my mentality. This is what I was thinking. I could let myself down. If I'd lost, then it felt on my shoulders, but I couldn't let him down. Do you see what I mean? Like I say, we were more than brothers. And when I won, Dudley won with me. If I lost, he lost with me. And that feeling was just so gut-wrenching. It was horrible. So when I look back now at my career, everything I've achieved, all that I am and all that I could ever be, I owe to my brother.
Could you tell the difference when Dudley was saying, you're going to win because you're going to win, or you're going to win, but hang on, you might actually lose this one? No,
because Dudley wasn't really like that. Hey, man, Dudley was very, very matter of fact. And like I say, there were fights that I'd had when I was coming up before I became world champion, and Dudley was like, I'm not really sure we need that one. Do you know what I mean? But I can't ever remember a time where I've seen another grown man cry, and I don't just mean little tears, I mean howling, with excitement when I've won, or tears of despair when I've lost. Like I say, we were more than brothers. My brother, every emotion I experienced, my brother felt with me. So, like I say, I believed in him so much, I couldn't fail. I couldn't fail him.
And to take a heavy pivot towards the current landscape of boxing, where will both Deontay Wilder, who's riding the spectrum downwards in his career right now, draw his confidence from? You had a brilliant conversation with him over in Dubai, and he talked about the many knives that he had to pull out of his back because of people taking from him throughout his career. And on the other side of the coin, a Derek Chisora, who's riding more of a high, but has been in a lot of fights and a lot of wars, and is up against someone who's carries still the power if he can land it.
This is what makes this fight so interesting. And it is an interesting fight because if nothing else, it doesn't matter if these two aren't at their best, they still hit hard enough to knock one another out. So this fight is going to be down to two main things. The first thing is, it's going to be down to the endurance of each fighter. How much has each fighter got left in the tank? The second is, it's going to be down to the concentration levels, because it'll be the one that can concentrate for the longer periods of time, doesn't make that slip, doesn't get that big shot. Do you see what I mean? Now, I was at Derek Chisora's fight when he boxed Joe Joyce at the O2, and I've never heard a roar like it. The last time I heard a roar like that was when I was in, as I say, I think South Africa for Lennox Lewis against Hassan Rahman. If I'm not mistaken, it was there. And when Lennox Lewis got knocked out, they took the roof off. I mean, they went mental. That's the only time I've heard a roar like that, was when Derek Chisora knocked out Joe Joyce. They took the roof off. He's a fan favourite down there. They love him down there. So if the fight between those two is over here and it's at the O2, I think you've got to back Chisora. You do.
In terms of in terms of Deontay Wilder, he's changed his style or tried to add more strings to his bow outside of just landing the right hand. Have you seen that in his recent performances, despite the losses? Have you seen him be someone who's more skilled in the ring, has more than just the right hand to land on his opponents? Yeah,
he's tried it. It's just my opinion. He's trying to box more now, but that's not really him. He's not a boxer. Deontay Wilder's not a boxer. He's not a jab and move merchant. He's not a slip block or a step. He doesn't do that. Deontay Wilder sets you up for the right hand. He'll pull you with a jab and he'll drop that right hand on you. That's his style. And if he wants to beat Derek Chisora, he's got to go back to being the executioner. He's got to go out there and do what he's done throughout the whole of his career. It's too late in the day to change his style now. So that's not the most advisable thing to do. Not in my opinion.
During your career, had you come up against fighters or in spars with fighters who exhibit a style like Derek Chisora, who come forward, have their hands by their chest and look to block shots and then land big shots back? Had you had the experience of that? What does that feel like when you're fighting that?
Yeah, the first one that springs to mind, I suppose, would be Steve Robinson when I boxed for the featherweight championship with the world. He had what they call a peekaboo style with his hands up, chin down, and would only respond once you'd thrown the shot. So he'd let you lead off, then he'd hit you with 4 or 5 shots and catch you because his hands were like pistons. They were really quick. And that in itself is quite intimidating because you're trying to pick your shots. You're looking for the pocket. You're looking to try and slip the shots in, but you just can't find it. And, he was a lot physically stronger than me as well. He was just much too big for me, ultimately. And but I feel with Chisora, that's he's been known to soak up so much punishment in fights, but he seems to find a way, and as he did in the Joe Joyce fight. And people have written him off before, and he ends up winning really, really late. That just seems to be part of his trait. But these two are so evenly matched right now, where they are in their respective careers. It's a real sort of pick 'em.
Tyson Fury has come out on social media and said, look, please put a world title on this fight. Do you feel that fight between Wilder and Chisora is befitting of a world championship?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the, what they call interim title fights that there are now, and I was in Dubai for Gassiev and Pulev. That was for a WBA, what they call regular title now, right? This fight's better than that fight. I promise you. This fight's head and shoulders above that fight, but there's not a title on the line. Which, when you look at the balance of things, that doesn't make it right. It's a pity that one of these two wasn't fighting Gassiev, right? I'm sure if they were, they'd have a great chance of winning.
Well, Tama was supposed to fight Pulev, wasn't he?
Yeah, sure.
But then
sure.
It changed to Gassiev.
And it changed to Gassiev. So, but I mean, let's get it right. Your man there, Atuma would beat those guys on the same night. Gassiev and Pulev.
Let's say that Chisora does come through with the victory. He said, and he's reiterated that on TalkSport recently, that would be his 50th and final fight. But if you win an interim, what sense is there into retiring at that point?
No. Chisora, he can't retire. His conscience won't let him retire if he's successful in winning this fight against Deontay Wilder, because the noise will just be too big, right? The noise will be too. And if he beats Wilder, then he's going to be saying to himself, he might even say to the promoters, get me Gassiev, for the regular WBA. Now, and that's, would you back against Chisora against him? He might have half a chance, because Gassiev ain't nothing great. Up until that point, before he knocked out Pulev, he was getting beat out of sight. I mean, it wasn't a great fight to watch. I didn't think so. It wasn't a great fight to watch. It was quite a one-paced fight. And Pulev was only flicking out his jabs every now and again before Gassiev nailed him with that left hook. But up until that point, Gassiev hadn't thrown a punch in anger. He was just stalking and waiting and following. All right, whether that was a tactical choice and it paid off, nobody will know because he got the win. But he couldn't fight that. He couldn't fight that out against Chisora, I'm sure.
Switching to Alexander Usyk, who doesn't hold the full heavyweight crown at the moment, but has twice. The great Alexander Usyk. You're right in mentioning that moniker before his name. I was speaking to John Fury over in Dusseldorf before Roman Fury came out. And of course, we're waiting for Tyson Fury's return. But John had sort of said that Alexander Usyk has essentially taken a liberty in wanting to fight Deontay Wilder, in wanting to fight the likes of Andy Ruiz, and not fighting his mandatories or people that are put in front of him or in position, like Fabio Wardley. Do you share any truth in that sentiment that Alexander Usyk might not be looking in the right places for opponents right now?
No, I wouldn't share that sentiment. He can do whatever he wants. He's more than earned it. He's beaten everybody that is anybody in the sport of boxing. Who else is there for him to fight? That's going to give him a test. That's going to really tell us if he is beatable.
Let me just interrupt there. This is where the UFC model will come back in, Duke. So the UFC model would then say, hang on, Alexander, Fabio Wardley is the one next in line. You've got to fight Fabio Wardley. There's no relinquishing anything.
All right.
That's who you've got to fight. So just going back to that, if the UFC model was in place here, that would be the next fight up.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not in place. So nobody can force him, can they?
Would you prefer right now Usyk versus Wardley or Usyk versus Ruiz or Wilder?
Oh, God. No, listen. If we're talking about fights, stylistically fights, good fights, then the most natural fight to make would be Wardley, wouldn't it? Because, like I said before, with Fabio, doesn't know how to lose. And at least with Fabio, when he goes in there, if he let's just say he fought Usyk, Usyk's going to be in a fight. I'm not saying he beats Usyk, because Usyk always finds a way to win. He's so adaptable. He's so clever. He's like, I should call him the professor. He dissects everybody in seconds, minutes even. He does a number on everybody. He finds a way to win. But that southpaw style gives everybody kidneys, But in an ideal world, of course, Fabio Waldy should get a shot at Alexander Usyk. But this isn't an ideal world.
Do you see any complications for Alexander Usyk? Of course there will be, but do you see any ones that will cause him real trouble in the fight with Ruiz, who was once a very feared counter-puncher, can throw punches in punches as well, has since lost a bit of weight, which has taken a bit from him, but has never got back to the heights that he did when he usurped Anthony Joshua over in America?
Now, Andy Ruiz is probably tailor-made for Alexander Usyk. If you look at his style and his stature, he's short, diminutive. He's a bit of a powerhouse. He looks strong. But Andy Ruiz doesn't fight at pace, can't fight at pace, where Usyk can. And Usyk's got much too much in terms of his lateral movement for Andy Ruiz, because Andy Ruiz won't catch him. He's not capable enough to catch him. He can get lucky, but it's highly unlikely.
There's a lot more boxing topics to discuss, but we'll leave those for another day. We've got a lot more content to film on Jukebox as well, so do keep tuned to Seconds Out and Jukebox for that content. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
McKenzie. Appreciate it.